Hey everyone, this is Derrick Broze of the Conscious Resistance Network, and today we're going to talk about the finders again. Just a little piece of information I think is relevant and might be important to some of you who have listened to the finders story before. Before we do that, though, I want to remind you guys to bookmark theconsciousresistance.com. That's my website that I've been running since 2013. This is the place where you can get plugged into all of my work and all the things I have coming up. I've been updating the website recently. For those who haven't noticed, I did update this tour 2020. This is where you can find out where I'm going to be speaking in the year 2020. Also, I'm thinking about doing a U.S. speaking tour again. For anybody who's interested, reach out to me and let's see if we can set that up. Maybe a small tour, maybe a big tour. It all depends on you. You can also sign into our TCR network. This is the network that runs the Conscious Resistance. So if you want to comment on our articles, this is where you would do it. If you want to message people within there, start your own groups, communicate, not on Facebook, etc., then do it. Join our little network for free and plug in. Also, follow us on Mind, Steemit, DTube, Discord, Remind, Text List, BitChute, etc., etc. Sign up for our email list. You guys know the drill. All right, so most of you probably have seen my documentary, Who Will Find What the Finders Hide, the full documentary, which was released in February 2019 and officially posted March 2019. So just almost a year ago, where we revealed the truth about the finders. And this is, of course, my full transcript right here. You can read the full transcript. Everything I talk about leaks to the documents. And, do so for yourself if you want to follow along the script. And if you haven't seen the documentary, I highly recommend watching the documentary. Now, one of the issues that is discussed in this documentary is the connections between the finders, specifically their founder, Marion Petty, and intelligence agencies such as the CIA and potentially other intelligence agencies, maybe even foreign intelligence agencies. And this is a controversial part of the story, but it's one that I've felt most confident about because, again, there have been claims with the finders from human trafficking, Satanism, as well as intelligence agencies. I've said it before, I think the claims that are the strongest are the clear intelligence connections agencies, then the human trafficking claims, and those are pretty strong evidence, and then the Satanism claims at the very end because there's the least amount of evidence related to that, at least from my perspective. But the intelligence agency connections are strong. So the reason I wanted to kind of key in and focus on this is because for those who listen to my radio program, Freethinker Radio, which if you follow our channels, you see the archives, you see the live shows. We recently had a show, let me see if I can find it. It might not be on here. We recently had a show where somebody called in live on air and said, "Hey, are you guys sure your show's not called Conspiracy Thinker Radio?" And it was just some guy kind of trolling us, right? But he basically said, because I asked him, I said, "Okay, well, tell me what conspiracies we've talked about." And he said, "Well, a couple of weeks ago, you talked about that Finders cult and, claimed they were connected to the CIA or whatever. Well, I looked it up, and every article I found just said that they're just a misunderstood group of misfits who happen to get tangled up in all these conspiracy theories that you guys believe in, So it was kind of that mentality or that approach. And honestly, it's frustrating to hear those sort of things because, yeah, if you do a search of the finders, you're going to find an article like Vice. And I've shown you guys this. We talked about this, how Vice provided cover for the finders. They actually did an article saying that, the finders are the original, conspiracy theory that led to Pizzagate and things like that. And basically they just try to totally downplay it. And every other mainstream outlet that has reported on this claims that there was nothing to see and that it was all blown out of water. It was a big mistake. There's nothing, nothing to actually investigate. And that's what somebody finds, right, when they search for that. So this guy, though, he basically called in to call us conspiracy theorists and say that he found nothing about intelligence agencies and it's all just a bunch of hogwash. So we're going to look into that claim a little bit, right? So this is what I responded to the journalist, quote-unquote journalist, who wrote this Vice article, who said that there's zero evidence that there is any truth to it, right? And she wrote some April 1987 speculation from a D.C. police officer written up in a bizarre official report. And as I said, that speculation in that bizarre report was the conclusion of a Metropolitan Police Department detective. That report is specifically what was covered up by the FBI, the CIA, and the FCIA until this release. What release? This release of documents, which, as you guys know, I've already covered this, the Finders documents, which were posted on the FBI's official website, the Vault, where they post declassified documents. And in these files, these 367 pages, 324 pages, which again I went through, we find clear evidence, even more clear evidence of connections to intelligence agencies. But before we get into that, let's just recap for those who are just catching up. Vice says that there's nothing to see here. This caller calls into my radio show and says we're conspiracy theorists and there's nothing to see here. Well, let's look at it. We have Marion Petty, the founder of the Finders, who used to work in the Air Force and was involved in naval intelligence, in the Navy, and was involved in naval intelligence. His wife worked for the CIA. His son worked for Air America, which was a CIA front company for smuggling drugs in and out of the country, right? So that's him working for quote-unquote, formerly working as naval intelligence, claiming that he retired. His wife having worked for the CIA. His son having worked for a CIA front organization. And members of the Finders also having worked for companies which trained CIA agents. That's something that we know for sure. There's not a controversial fact about. That's just a fact. Those are truths right there. So those are just little bits of information, right? But then what about in the actual FBI dump? What did we find here? So this is from page 67 of the FBI's official document dump. This is that bizarre official report that Vice wrote about. The Government of the District of Columbia, Metropolitan Police Department, Morals Division File Report, The Finders Investigation, April 13th, 1987. And let's just read what this bizarre report says and see if there's anything that might lend some credibility to this intelligence agency claim, or if it's just a bunch of conspiracy theory nonsense like the caller told me. Summary. It is this writer's belief that the Finders organization is and has been utilized by the Central Intelligence Agency as a disinformation service spreading non-essential, non-critical information to various organizations throughout the United States and overseas. That's literally the first sentence of this formerly secret report. You see at the top, secret is marked out. It was made secret in 1987 and it was only released in 2019. Why? Why did they decide to make it secret? Who covered this up? But the very first sentence says that this writer, a detective with the Metro PD that was investigating the Finders, says that they were a CIA disinformation service. The group, to the most part, is made up of overeducated non-achievers who lack the inborn initiative to succeed on their own. Therefore, they fell with a charismatic leader who gave them direction and self-importance. Charismatic leader, Marion Petty, again, working with intelligence agencies. To the most part, this organization individually is harmless. However, when directed and monitored by a controlling factor, they are capable of destructive and illegal activities. Now, I've read this before in past videos, but I just want to reemphasize this for those who didn't quite get the memo. This person says, as in any cult structure, the main drive is for the group and individual values. Is for the group and individual values and ideology is lost. Therefore, when a member is asked to perform a task that heretofore may have been objectionable, he or she performs this mission for the good of the group. So it just turns them into a bunch of collectivists. He says he does not believe, I do believe that the shaping of the children is a planned experiment of this group, as in the case of the Nazis, they strove for a perfect society. Now, this part is important here. He says, lastly, I do not feel that the Finders have disbanded, as has reported by their leaders. Instead, as reported in their master plan, they have appeared to disband to prevent further detection by law enforcement or social service officials. I firmly believe that this group should be monitored in a general sense, and if further development occurs, they should be noted. So that's coming from a previously secret report from the Metro PD, which was never released prior to this. We were told publicly there's nothing to see here by the Washington Post and by the Associated Press back in 1987 and again in 1993. Now in 2019, Vice puts out a crappy article claiming that there's nothing to see here again, and their quote-unquote journalists can't even see the truth right in front of them, and they don't make it clear that the FBI did dump these documents and that the documents make it clear there was intelligence agency connections. So, to the random caller who called into Freethinker Radio to try to troll me, I hope you hear this, and I will say this again on the radio just so it's clear to you. There are obvious intelligence connections. And if you don't see that, you're choosing to be willfully ignorant. I will post the link for those who haven't seen it to these FBI Finders documents. I'll post a link to my documentary just by some chance you haven't seen it yet. And if you have seen it, please share it. Share it with people who need to know this story, because I plan to make a part 2 of this documentary very soon, because now we need to update it and show people, hey, these declassified documents make it clear that the finders were in fact involved with intelligence agencies, and that it was covered up, and the truth has been hidden for 30 years. The only way to get past the lies is to keep exposing the truth. So please, work with me to expose the truth. Share this video, share this content, subscribe, like, follow, share, and get involved in some way, guys. The only hope for 2020 and beyond is for us to spread information together, to keep reaching new people, to keep waking people up. And that doesn't happen when we sit on the sidelines and we remain silent, or we just remain apathetic, or we remain scared, or we remain insecure. Step up to the plate, evolve, push yourself, drive yourself to new heights, and wake people up. Because there are pedophiles running many, many aspects of our world, and it's being covered up by intelligence agencies, from Jeffrey Epstein to the Finders to the Franklin scandal to Jimmy Savile to Prince Andrew to plenty of other people. It's out there, and if you're willing to look, you'll find it. But you got to share it with other people. Help them see the truth. Until next time, remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free. Peace.